Well, the Bombers have just defeated Geelong by 21 points. 104 to 83, very impressive performance. I'm going to go into some detail in a second. We're going to go through each of the 4 quarters. It was a pretty good game. We started strongly, faded a little bit in the middle 2 quarters and came home like a house on fire. The big talking point out of the match will be Isaac Kako, who kicked 4 goals and was robbed by Sam Draper on the goal line in that last second. Perhaps should have been 5. You never know, it might have stopped on the line and it might not have gone through, but would have been nice to see him get that 5th goal. But it was a very impressive performance by the Bombers. We had a massive 267 kicks. Can you believe it? So without further ado, I'm going to go into some detail now through each of the 4 quarters. We're going to start with the opening term. If you like this channel, please hit the like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm if you hit that like button. And of course, please consider subscribing. I'm at about 480 subscribers, so it would be nice to get up to 500. I would really, really appreciate it if you could do that. Well, the first quarter, you have to say, was very, very good from Essendon's point of view. It was 5 goals to 2, and we certainly had the better of the quarter. Draper was starting in the ruck. Nick Bryan was not playing in the first quarter, nor was Nate Caddy. Leading possession winners in the quarter, Caldwell had 9, Hobbs and Sardis both had 8, Merritt had 10, Nick Martin had 7 and kicked a couple of nice goals, and Dylan Shield was the leading possession winner for us and for both teams with 13, and he was getting the ball everywhere. Best part about the quarter, we had 14 clearances to 2 in the first quarter, which was very, very good. Some interesting bits of play. Merritt did a beautiful pass to Nick Martin, who got it to Kako, which ended up resulting in a Durham goal, the first goal of the match. Durham was playing forward. Interesting little move there, seeing Durham forward. Martin kicked a nice little goal as well shortly after that, a nice little snap. Ended up with actually 2 goals for the quarter, reiterating what I and a lot of other people have been saying, is that it looks like he will be playing forward this year, or forward off centre, midfielder/forward, forward half of the ground. He always kicks forward. He always kicks goals when he goes forward. I'm like a broken record when I say that. Sardis was pretty good. I thought he showed good pressure. The pressure from the team was pretty good all round. Sardis, like I said, had the 8 possessions. Did a nice smother, which prevented a forward 50 entry to Geelong from him. There was a nice smother in there as well, not just by Sardis, but also by Langford, preventing a forward 50. Shortly after that, there was some very good forward pressure by the team, which resulted in the second goal to Nick Martin. It looked like a little bit like we were potentially over-possessing the ball in the forward 50, giving an extra hand pass, an extra possession where it probably wasn't needed. Something that's always a little frustrating for me. That's something that they probably need to work on. Draper, I thought, played very, very well in the first quarter. I thought Draper and Shield were probably our 2 best players. Kako had a bad turnover at one point, which led to a Geelong shot on goal. But credit to him, he chased down the Geelong player, I forget who it was, and put in a really good effort after his error, which is what you like to see. Kako as well kicked a nice goal, which would have made us all happy, and had an opportunity very, very late in the quarter to get a second, but the siren beat him. And all up, it was a pretty good start by the Bombers. It was a quarter that we definitely had the better of, but definitely the highlights were 14 clearances to 2. That was the most important thing, and I think our forward pressure was really good as well. So the second quarter, Geelong started to get on top and show their class. They won the quarter 6 goals to 3. They certainly had the majority of the play and had the ball in their forward half of the ground for most of the time. Caddy and Bryan both came onto the ground for Essendon. Both played pretty well. Caddy was excellent, kicking a couple of goals. And it just goes to what I've said in some previous videos, that I don't think it's unreasonable to expect Caddy to kick 1.5 goals a game. I was lowballing it. I thought maybe he can kick 2 goals a game. That's 46 goals for the year. That would go more than some way to making up for Stringer's 40 goals that we need to make up somehow. And he showed that in just one quarter. He just come on one quarter and kicked a couple of good goals. Mackay was outmarked at the start of the quarter and made an error, and also made a little bit of a blue, misreading a ball that came in, which led to a Blixar's goal. Durham, once again playing forward, had a bit of a snap that went out of bounds on the full, but another sort of opportunity for a score from him. Zach Reid was outmarked by Shannon Neal at some point. So Zach Reid and Ben Mackay were sort of both outworked at various times by the bigger-bodied Geelong players. Jeremy Cameron started to get on top in that quarter, kicked a really, really good goal from the boundary line that was impossible to stop. A snap from 45 metres out was just unbelievable. Nick Bryan for Essendon had a pretty good quarter. Like I said, he came on at quarter time. He took a good mark at one point, which led to a Langford shot at goal. Langford ended up kicking a point, but it was a big shot from outside 50, which was a pretty good kick. Archie Perkins played pretty well, and it looks like he might be ready to cause a bit of havoc down there in the forward line. He did a few things. He had a nice holding the ball decision go his way at one point, which led to a shot at goal for him. Like I said, Caddy also with a couple of goals. He got a free kick at one point just at the end, which led to a shot at goal. So in the end, it's not a terrible quarter. You can't keep Geelong down for the whole game. They got on top of us, but we held our own. We still made the most of opportunities. We've been very efficient, kicking just the 8 goals, only the one behind so far. Clearances is one area that Geelong made up for in that quarter. In the first quarter, it was 14-2 in favour of Essendon. Geelong obviously went to work on that part of the game, and they had 10 clearances to Essendon's 6 in that quarter. We still hold the edge on that stat, but that was a much more dominant performance from Geelong. That was an area of the game they needed to sort out. So at half-time, there was pretty much nothing in it, 52-49. We're playing okay. It's going to be a bit hard to assess all the players because some players are only going to play a quarter here, a quarter there. It looks like Peter Wright, who played in the reserves earlier today, only sort of had, I think, a possession or 1 or 2 possessions in the first quarter, so I doubt he'll play in the second half, given that he played in the reserves. Worth noting that Tom Edwards kicked 3 goals in the reserves earlier today, for those that wanted to know. So, yeah, that was a situation at half-time. You would have to say, from the first half, Dylan Shield playing off half-back, leading the possessions total with 18, looks to be a winner so far. It looks like it just suits the way he plays, quite an attacking player, and he's obviously a pretty good kick, good disposer of the ball. Seems to have pretty good vision, and that seems to be well suited to a halfback position, which, we haven't really seen him play during his career. So if that, continues, then that looks, at least from exposed form from the first half an hour of this match, or first hour of this match, that looks like a pretty good move for the Bombers. Well, the third quarter went Essendon's way. 3 goals, 1-19 to 2-3-15 to Geelong. It was a little bit of a stalemate. The defences were on top this quarter, and I think that probably suited us. The first half was a bit more open and free-flowing. And obviously, if we want to be a good team, we need to know how to get down and dirty. And I think the third quarter was a bit like that. And I think that was probably something that we needed some exposure to. Draper was back in the ruck again. He spent a little bit of time forward in this quarter. Martin did some good forward work, which hit Jones up for a shot at goal. Harry Jones, and Jones kicked a poster with that one. Durham took a good contested mark, once again showing that he might be a bit of a wild card down there in the forward line during the season. Who knows? And he kicked a nice goal from that. Looked like Setterfield was on. I'm not sure if Setterfield was on in the first half. I didn't see him, but he picked up a couple of possessions in this quarter. The defence did seem to hold up pretty well. Dersma has probably had an okay game up until this point. It had 10 or 11 possessions, had 2 absolute clangers kicked out of bounds on the full, which was not good. He does need to work on his kicking. Caddy took a good contested mark during the quarter, kicking his 3rd goal, showing that, once again, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect, 2 goals a game from him. Is that too much to ask from a teenager? But he looks beyond his years. He certainly doesn't look like he's 19. He's a big, tall, strapping young lad, and that was set up by a very good tap from Merritt, who did some nice things in close there. Kako got another goal. Once again, Kako and Caddy, that's the players we're going to be looking at this year. They're the players that really weren't factors for us last year. Caddy only with the 9 goals last year, and Kako obviously not on the list, and Kako with a nice goal there as well. Martin took a nice mark and did some nice forward 50 work lurking in there and kicked it to Hobbs. And Hobbs kicked what can only be described as probably the worst set shot I have ever seen. It was probably the key moment of the quarter, because if Hobbs had kicked that goal, we would have been 4 goals up. And from the resultant behind, Geelong ended up scoring the next 2 goals, and the margin at 3-quarter time is only a point in it in favour of the Bombers, instead of perhaps being 4 goals up, which is what we probably would have been had Hobbs kicked the goal. Shield was a little quieter in that quarter. Shield at the conclusion of the third quarter only has the 20 possessions, so he's only picked up a couple of possessions in that quarter, so Cats probably went to work on him a little bit. But once again, a bit more of a scrappy quarter, which probably suits us. And look, it's a competitive game. That's all you can ask for at this particular point. So the third quarter, a bit of a scrap, but not too bad a quarter from the Bombers. So the last quarter, Essendon won the last quarter 6 goals straight to 2 goals for, and this was good for a couple of reasons, not just because it's always good to win the quarter down there against Geelong, but given that it's the last proper hit out before the opening round of the season against the Gold Coast, you do want to treat that last quarter, especially when the game is on the line, as if it's like a proper game, and the competitive instincts of the players clearly took over. You could see the intensity wasn't quite that level of a home and away game. I don't think Geelong were probably going quite 100%, but it was pretty close in that last quarter. Certainly, it was much, much different, a much, much more different type of game to that trial game against the Bulldogs, where really, we weren't even playing with proper, length quarters. There was no time on, and there was like 14 off the bench and this sort of thing. It was good to get better as the quarter went on, and in the end, eke out a 21-point win against Geelong, obviously one of the best sides in the competition. Tardis was going very well in that quarter as well. I thought he did some good things early. He had a clearance early, which gave him, I think, 10 clearances for the game. Kako kicked both his third and fourth goals. He will probably be the talking point of the game. Even though it's only sort of a practice game, you don't really expect the teenager like that against Geelong to kick 4 goals at Caddy Park, so everybody's going to be all over him. And so they should. He was really good. I thought just a couple of things other people may not have noticed. I thought Reid was pretty solid down back. I thought he took a good contested mark in defence and was pretty solid. Gresham, I thought, was dangerous forward of centre, doing some nice things. Kicked a couple of goals, including a nice check side. Durham missed an open goal in that quarter towards running towards an open goal. I thought the dual rucks seemed to go pretty well. Nick Bryan did pretty well. There's no reason to think that they both can't play in the same team. And just looking at it as well, I think the forward pressure from Essendon was very, very good. This is something that we need to improve. One of the things that the criticisms of Essendon over the last couple of years, is the ease with which the opposition bring the ball from one end of the ground to the other. We look like we've definitely improved in that area to some extent. We need to. It doesn't mean we're going to be the best in the AFL at it, but we certainly need to be at least average in that area instead of in the bottom 3 or 4. Other things to take away from the game. Just looking at Kako, there's every reason to suggest that he could potentially be to us this year what someone like Nick Watson was for Hawthorn. Nick Watson was a reasonably high pick in the draft and was picked as a forward player who can kick goals. And he did pretty well for Hawthorn last year, obviously, as everyone knows. There's no reason to suggest that Kako, if he can establish himself in the senior team, can't kick a goal a match, 1 goal a match. And that might be lowballing it. I mean, that's not an unreasonable expectation, even though he is young. And the same goes for Nick Caddy. There's no reason to suggest he can't kick between 1 and 2 goals a game. And that can go a long way to making up for Stringer's absence. And that's before we even start getting into the other forwards down there. So all up, it was a very, very encouraging performance. Some of the key stats in the game. Contested possessions, we led narrowly 139 to 129. We had a big lead in uncontested possessions, 279 to 235. Last year, we did dominate uncontested possessions. We were the leading team in the competition for uncontested possessions. So we had a big lead in that once again. We led the clearances 41 to 28. We led the hit-outs 39 to 29. Not really all that important stat generally. We led the tackles 50 to 35. But importantly, and this was a key stat, we had 12 tackles inside 50 to Geelong 7. And this is the sort of thing I'll be looking at during the year. Where is our forward pressure? Is that generating scores for us? We had 12 tackles inside 50. I don't know how many of those ended up generating scores. I would suggest a couple of them probably did. We can't rely on kicking 17 goals too every week. I mean, we don't want to use up all our good accuracy points early. But nevertheless, it is good to kick straight. We had 267 kicks to 197, so a massive, massive difference in kicks. In fact, we had over 420 possessions in the match, which is an insane amount of possessions. We had 267 kicks, 162 handballs. Geelong had 197 kicks, 168 handballs. So that is quite an extraordinary stat. It's very, very rare that you see a team have over 250 kicks. I mean, we had 267 kicks for a total of 429 disposals. So that is an insane amount of disposals for the game. So it will be interesting how that manifests itself when the season starts. Obviously, if you over-possess the ball, that can be exposed with opposition putting pressure on you. That's one of the key problems with being a high possession team. You do open yourself up potentially to getting unstuck with the pressure from the opposition. But we'll see how it goes. Nevertheless, if we've got the ball, guess what? The opposition hasn't got it. So in the end, it was a pretty positive performance from Essendon. A good win, a 21-point win over Geelong. I just wish we can beat them when the season starts. Some of the key disposal numbers in the match, I'll just read them now for you, just for those that are interested. Draper had 15 possessions, Bryan 17, Caddy 4 but kicked 3 goals, Caldwell 14, Durham 14 but kicked 2 goals, Dersma 14, Edwards 3, Gresham 16 and 2 goals, Hayes 11 possessions. Oh, Hayes was a good solid player for us down there. Interesting to see him in there today. Hobbs, I thought, was one of our best 3 or 4 players with 29 possessions. Jones, a surprising 27 possessions and a behind. Kako, 14 possessions and 4 goals. Langford, 17 possessions and a behind. Nick Martin, 22 possessions and 2 goals. Nick Martin was fantastic in the first half, not as good in the second half. I'm not sure if he spent a bit of time on the bench in the second half. Someone else might be able to clarify that. McGrath, 28 possessions. Mackay, reasonably solid, couple of mistakes, but had the 12 possessions. Merritt, 21 possessions. It's good that Merritt only had 21, and we've actually had some high numbers and some better players than Merritt on the day. It's always a good sign. Perkins, 10 possessions, 2 goals. Pryor was pretty good, 13 possessions. Reid was solid with 18. Ridley, 20. Roberts, 17. Setterfield, 15. Dylan Shield with 26. He had 18 at half-time. Sartis with 31 and Peter Wright with just the 1 kick. I thought Sartis, Shield, Hobbs and Kako, off the top of my head, were probably our best players, and I'd throw Martin in there as well as the 5th player. That's just my raw opinion straight after the match is finished, without really analysing it further. They're probably the 5 players I reckon were probably the best 5 players on the ground. What did you guys think? Impressive win for Essendon early. Hopefully it's a sign of things to come. I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Put a like on this video. It helps the YouTube algorithm. It would help me out a lot if you could do that. And as always, have a great day.